Our guest on today's episode is Paul Noris, CEO of Bank of Central Florida, to discuss what is going on in the world of banking and how Bank of Central Florida adapts and accommodates to meet the needs of their clients. We hope you enjoy.
In Our Expert Opinion podcast is brought to you by SVN Saunders Ralston Dancer Real Estate, a full-service land and commercial brokerage with almost $4 billion in transactions since 1996. Almost $4 billion?
As a matter of fact, it's over $4.5 billion in transactions since 1996. And, you have these other brokerages that might have more, but they have always had more people,
right,
or they've been larger brokerage. And I don't know how many people Dean started out with, but it certainly isn't, the 60 plus agents that we have now. So
I actually went through and counted the roster the other day.
Yeah.
There's 91 people on our roster. Obviously, we have some staff.
I
we
probably
have some
like
brokers.
2 of those people out of the
Both of them?
both of them. We've added in the past probably 2 years, I would say like half of those people. Don't you think so, Chad?
I think so.
Yeah. Haven't met a lot of them. I don't really come in that much anymore, Try to just lay low.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to make people think that, I'm really low key if I don't come in here.
Yeah, it's funny. We've probably added 40% of our staff since COVID.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Same idea.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that though, because obviously I'm worried about the economy, which is why you're here today. So welcome back to In Our Expert Opinion podcast. I am Linda, the host, and I have my co-host here, which I think the last time I recorded might have been 2 months ago, and Chad was not here. And I was pretty bummed, Chad.
Your emotional support?
My abusive emotional support human. I don't remember where you were. You might have been on vacation or something.
I don't know, but I can tell you that it was very difficult without Michael and just a little bit of help from Eli getting all my bearings straight.
But you did it.
I did it. All the cameras are set up.
But you did it.
Yeah, all the lights are on.
The doorbell's ringing, the lights are on, the bills are paid. Yes. Chad did all of that. No, it was very, I don't remember. I feel like Eli might have been sitting. So the way that the room is set up, just for, even on YouTube, it doesn't show it, but we have like a desk and everything kind of in front of me where Chad or Michael, sits behind. But Eli happened to be sitting just directly in front of me, just looking at me the whole time. Scared me, but he did a good job. And I don't even remember who the guest was, but they were like, oh, he's going to sit there. And I was like, yeah, he's going to sit right there.
That's his spot.
Anyways, I have Paul Noris here with Bank of Central Florida. He's the CEO. And I really, this morning, while I was getting ready, I was like, don't say Chuck Norris.
Yeah, I hear that quite a bit.
Yeah.
And fortunately, he spells his name with 2 R's. I spell mine with 1 R, so I can always kind of separate myself from him. But
so nobody is asking if you're like related or anything?
They ask all the time, but I'm not.
People used to ask me if I was related to Charles Schultz, who wrote the Peanuts column. I wouldn't be here if that was the case. I would be somewhere else.
On a boat?
Yeah, I wouldn't be working.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Singing for my pennies.
Yes.
Essentially,
yes.
Which is what we do here. But so you have been with Bank of Central Florida for how long?
So we started the bank back in 2007.
I don't think I realized that you...
Founder?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we hatched the idea in 2006 in March, and I was the founding CEO of the bank. We took us about a year to get a charter. We opened in March of 2007. We had an original board of 12 of us that started the bank right here in Lakeland, and raised all of the money here, raised about $23.5 million in capital over about a 2-month period to get the bank started, and 95% of our shareholders are right here in Lakeland, and so it's been an awesome ride.
That's
been a lot of fun.
incredible.
Yeah.
Why? What made you? Where were you before?
Yeah, so I've been in the banking business my whole life. Graduated from University of Florida with a finance degree. Went to work at SunTrust and spent 17 years there. Loved that company, but I guess as they got bigger, it just became a little bit less personal. And so I really wanted to do something different. My dad owned his own business, and so I sort of had an entrepreneurial spirit. And so sure enough, I made the decision to leave. A good friend of mine, Wesley Beck, a lot of your folks that listen to the podcast may know Wesley. He's a developer and entrepreneur here in town. And so he and I decided we were going to try to go out and buy some businesses and do some different things. And we got a call one day from somebody that said, hey, I'm thinking about starting a bank. Do you and Wesley have any interest in investing? And so we took the lunch, and out of that grew Bank of Central Florida. So it's kind of a cool story, and it's a homegrown bank, truly, and shareholders are local. Vast majority of our clients are here in Polk County, so it's been a fun time.
That is wild. I don't know what goes into even
thinking about it.
Oh yeah, I don't. 23 million is a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of capital. So it's
and is 1 year a quick turnaround? That seems very quick to start anything.
Just a side note, Chad, did you hear how he says finance?
Finance.
I think I have to switch it up because I really like that a lot better.
It sounds a little cooler than
I think
finance.
so.
It does. It kind of has a little swag to it.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Good job.
So anyway, Chad, it was a quick turnaround. I mean, we got started pretty quick. We hired our first employee probably in April or May, so I had somebody with me to kind of set the back part of the bank up together. But yeah, it's funny, when I left SunTrust, I really wanted to do something entrepreneurial. I never expected that would be starting a bank. Knew a lot about banking, but didn't know anything about starting a bank. So we hired a consultant, we hired an attorney, and began down that process, but literally didn't have a name, didn't have operating systems. We had nothing. I mean, we had an idea, and we had a group of board members who believed in what we were trying to accomplish, and it was a long year to get it opened. Ironically, that year happened to be the same year that I chaired the chamber here in Lakeland.
Oh gosh.
So that's
a lot.
Yeah, that first year was there was a lot going on. Had to reintroduce myself to my wife and my daughters after that year was over, but no, it was a great experience, and you just sort of put the blocks together, and interestingly enough, raising the money is what you do at the very end. So we started raising money, and I don't recommend this, but we started raising money in middle of November. And so basically through the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays is when we were out trying to raise money. And it's not the easiest time in the world to do it, but it took us right at 2 months. We finished up in the middle of January, and we shut it off. We started to raise $15 million and ended up shutting it off at 23.5 and we returned some checks. We knew we couldn't leverage that much capital. In hindsight now, I wish I had it, but that's, it is what it is. But yeah, we've been.
I think you've done all right, you know?
We've done. We've grown it to over $1 billion in assets. Almost all of that here in Polk County. We do now have a Hillsborough presence in Plant City and downtown, or not downtown, but in Tampa. And so that's been a lot of fun. That's happened in the last couple of years. So we're sort of trying to figure out how do you do things in different markets, and how is Tampa different than Polk, and so it's been fun.
Yeah. What makes your bank different than maybe the banks that you worked at before?
Yeah, I think it's about culture. I mean, everybody talks about client service and those kind of things, and our company has 5 core values that we live by. But for us, it's really about finding people that have a servant's heart, that really love to take care of people. And if you can create that culture where that's the norm and that's acceptable, and so they have the opportunity to really be who they want to be, meaning they want to take care of clients, they want to take care of their fellow employees. We're very active in the community. We have a lot of our folks that get involved in that. So, from our perspective, the culture that we build, which is very entrepreneurial, it's not like a typical bank. We look for solutions that other banks wouldn't try. We really hold ourselves to a pretty high standard. And one of the great things about our culture is everybody knows what the standard is, and it really gets, people kind of get weeded out. If they really, yeah, you know, so in the old days, everybody always looked to management to, hey, you need to take care of Susie because she's not doing her job. Now it's more the culture coming to us going, hey, we've coached and prodded as much as we can, but she or he doesn't fit here.
It's sort of self-regulated at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we have 100 employees, and so, you know, we now know sort of who we are, and, you know, I compare our adventure to really raising a child. So those first couple years, couldn't walk, didn't really know what we were doing. We're, you know, just trying to figure it out. Then you get into the middle years where you sort of understand and you're kind of there. And I'd say now we're probably in early adulthood where we have a pretty good idea of who we are and sort of what we want out of our life. And now really the culture takes care of itself, which I love.
I actually have to give a little shout out to one of your employees,
Okay.
Kim.
Yeah.
I never know how to pronounce her last name.
Kim Neisch.
Nice. She's very nice, actually.
Yeah.
She's one of my favorite people. She's so kind and very knowledgeable. I was in Rotary with her.
Yes.
I've done some work with her, and she is, I know she really loves working there, and she really does believe in the difference of your bank over others.
She's a great example. I mean, just somebody who's a good person and really wants to do the right thing. And in our culture, we allow our employees to do the right thing. So if they're in a client situation and they know what they would want to have happen to them, they're free to do that. I mean, we don't, you know, we're not Monday morning quarterbacking them saying, hey, why, you know, certainly if it's a big issue, we've got to get our hands around it. But I always tell our folks, take care of the client, get the client happy and taken care of, and then we can get together and figure out why it happened, who did what or whatever. But none of that should happen at a time where you're trying to take care of the client.
Yeah.
Take care of the client, and then we'll figure out the
I
rest.
really like that a lot because I think that so many of the, maybe like the national banks or, you know, global banks they're very difficult to get anything communicated
yeah.
through. And, you know, it's a wonder that anything gets done in the world, truly.
And that's a very different culture. I mean, I came out of the SunTrust culture, and again, great company. But when you're that large, you know, you have a playbook, and you really can't let people get outside the playbook.
Yeah.
Because it's just too hard to manage it. And our company is just the opposite. I tell our folks, do anything you need to do as long as it's not going to get the CEO thrown in jail. I'm good with it. But take care of the client, and you have flexibility to do it the way that you want to do it.
Yeah, I love that though, because I feel like that gives people an opportunity that would not have, you know, small businesses or, you know, first-time home buyer, you know, whatever it may be. I think that's really fantastic.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, sometimes people join our organization from a big bank. And they want to know where the playbook is. And we're like, no, we deal in the gray here a lot. So you have the ability to think, make decisions. And we've had people that haven't made it 90 days, not because they didn't like our culture, but because there was not enough structure. They wanted to know, in this circumstance, what is it that I'm supposed to do? And what we tell them is, in that circumstances, you have to think through it. Ask your peers if you don't really know what the right solution is. But then you have the autonomy to do it.
Yeah.
And for some people, they thrive in that environment. Other people are like, no, I want my playbook. And I just don't want to be held accountable for anything that's not there. So anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But it's culture, I think, that really drives what we do.
No, I think that's wonderful. And so what are the, I would say, major changes that you've seen over banking, maybe even from the time that you went in until now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been in the business for about 35 years now. And, you know, in the old days, the banking business didn't change very much. It was pretty stodgy. It was same product suite. It was whatever. I mean, I can remember internet banking becoming a thing and how we had people who were like, no, I'll never do that. And now can you imagine a bank that doesn't have internet banking or an app? And so what I've noticed about our industry is the pace of change is dramatically different in the last, primarily since the Great Recession and in the last 15 years. The amount of products that we roll out, the enhancements, just a quick story. So I'll ask you a question. So is the iPhone or the Bank of Central Florida older? So we opened in March of 2007, so I'll give you that data point. So is the iPhone older or younger than we are?
Younger. Also, I should let this be known, I have an Android. I've never had an iPhone. So.
Full disclosure, right?
I think it's the same, right?
So the iPhone
06.
came out in September of 07, so 6 months after we opened. So if you can think about, we wrote a business plan, we knew exactly what we were going to try to do. All of a sudden, there's this new device called an iPhone. Nobody had ever heard of an app, much less to use it for banking. And so we had to completely pivot our business model almost immediately. So you're just trying to get your company up and started, and then all of a sudden they say to you, no, this is the new world, and you have to pivot here. And so if we didn't have an entrepreneurial culture, we would have been dead in the water.
Yeah.
I mean, and we didn't have, legacy systems, so we were able to adapt. But it is interesting how, really our company's culture leads us to be entrepreneurial, and that's what's important for us.
Yeah. That would be very, very difficult. Yeah. Yeah. To pivot, in a way that everything had been done, this way before.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's this brand new
Device.
Yeah. That's really
and we
crazy.
do allow people to bank from Androids too, so just so you know. Just full disclosure.
People are really mad at me. They have been, and I'm never changing. It came to a point where I was like, I almost like the negative, but okay. I had this friend who worked at SpaceX. He was not the janitor, so it's not like he was like not doing
Right.
technological things. And he has always had an Android. So I was like, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. But now I kind of like being this, if I'm in a group and nobody can send a video, I'm like, oh, so sorry, that would be my bad.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's good.
No, but it's very interesting because, I don't ever really think about that time of this huge, change in the world, really.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, I can remember when internet banking came out, and again, for the banks at that point, it was a complete pivot of a delivery channel that we'd never seen and never had. It's interesting. In our bank, about 80%, 85% of our deposits get made digitally.
Okay.
So people don't come into the office to make deposits. We love our clients when they want to come see us, don't get me wrong. But the vast, vast majority of our clients are either using their phone or they're using, a kind of a teller device that we put in their office. We call it remote deposit capture. So they can deposit checks at their office at their convenience without having to run to the bank. So, and that didn't exist when we opened.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the shift and change. So it makes it very difficult for us to sort of figure out how many branches do you need because you don't have a lot of traffic.
Right.
But people still want the convenience.
But there's that one time that somebody might really, really need to come in.
And again, we do have clients. I think it's funny. We do have clients who just want to come in. They love talking to our folks, and it's part of their morning routine of going to get their mail, a cup of coffee, and they go to the bank.
Those are the people that I loathe when I'm in line. I'm just trying to transfer money or something, and I'm like, I'm going to go ballistic. I'll be the one on one of these viral videos, these Karens, who are just freaking out on somebody.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's very sweet, that you guys know your clients that well and probably know their families and their grandchildren and, their businesses. And so actually that brings me to my next point, which is and we had talked about it on the phone a little bit, but there were some banks that collapsed.
Right.
Was it this year?
Yeah, earlier this year.
Jeez.
Yeah, there was 3 banks that the one that most people know about is SVB, Silicon Valley Bank out in California was one. And I think it was an interesting time. I mean, I can tell you, following that collapse, I've never taken more phone calls from our clients and our shareholders.
Well, I was calling Kim, or, I was sitting right in front of her, and I was like,
so, yeah, exactly.
Is it happening? Is everything going to be done?
Yeah, and the thing about that collapse is that bank took some risks that most banks didn't take. It had a very unique client base. So, the biggest thing that happened to them is when that that client base started communicating with each other, ironically over Twitter, all of a sudden people just started rolling cash out of the bank. And so they had, kind of too much of their eggs in one basket. And most banks in America are not built that way. And our bank's not built that way. Now, the rise in interest rates has been a real challenge for banks to figure out how to manage. Our bond portfolio has some issues, but fortunately we have been able to manage through those without any issues. So I would tell you that the industry as a whole, very, very stable.
Okay.
Now, do I think there will be some more failures? I do, only because SVB wasn't the only person that took that approach. Other people are kind of hanging on, so we'll see. Most likely is their bank will get sold, and so somebody will buy it. But right now it's kind of the next 90 to 180 days are going to be pretty important to sort of see how it settles out. Yeah.
And so, right before we started recording, you were saying that you had just gotten your numbers in for June.
Sure, June.
And so, is that why? Do you think that you said that quarter is really important? So
yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see, and some of the banks, the big banks have already started to announce. But when I'm talking about the community bank space, so banks that are $5 billion and under. It's going to be really interesting to see how they did because, and you're going to see some weakness in certain banks, and regulators are going to be a little quicker to react, I think, than what they were with SVB, meaning they're going to step in and say, you need to find a partner, or you need to raise some more capital, or whatever it is that we need to do to solve the problem.
Are the regulators doing that because of SVB? Do you think that they're being overly cautious now, or do you think that they're kind of trying to learn from a very recent mistake?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would say the regulatory environment ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
During good times, it's more lax, and during bad times, it's too harsh. We talk about the fact that, just a little bit of balance, and anytime, and I say all the time, regulators don't run our bank. We run our bank. But we do have somebody looking over our shoulder that we actually have to pay attention to. And so we do a pretty good job of managing to the guidelines they provide, but we have enough autonomy to do what we need to do to take care of clients and our shareholders, really. I mean, our primary reason for being in business is to reward our shareholders at the end of the day. We want to take good care of our employees, good care of our clients. But at the end of the day, it's the people provided the capital that started the company.
Right.
So we've got to make sure we're taking care of them.
Right. And so, during this economic time, how is that impacting your business, your clients? What have you seen during even this year?
Yeah. It's interesting. We bank probably 600 to 700 commercial clients here in Polk County. So all different kinds of industries. So real estate people, physicians, attorneys, manufacturers. So we have a pretty diverse client base. And I would tell you that we really haven't seen any cracks in it as of yet. I mean, most everybody's doing okay. What I will say is most of our clients are pretty happy that things have kind of slowed down a little bit because the pace at which they were running going into the pandemic was couldn't find enough people. It was chaotic.
Yeah.
So I think that they're happy, but we really have not seen any credit issues. But quite honestly, we're in Central Florida.
I know.
And people are moving here, and capital flows here.
If Gary Ralston was in here, he'd be able to tell you the exact number.
Yes.
I almost wonder if he doesn't sit at the border and have a clicker.
He does a really good job of analyzing data, and he shares it with me regularly. So I do appreciate that.
Yes.
So I just don't. I mean, if there is a recession, will we have some slowdown in Central Florida? Probably. But are we going to be in the same situation of a lot of other cities? I don't think so.
Right.
I mean, I think we'll weather this pretty well.
Do you think commercial real estate is going to be impacted by all of these? Maybe, I mean, nothing, I can't sit here and say that we're in a recession or that, something super crazy is going on. But I mean, have there been impacts in commercial real estate? Do you think that there are going to be? I know you can't predict anything.
Yeah, well, no, I wish I could predict it. But no, I mean, I think commercial real estate has been impacted to some extent because you have higher interest rates. So, commercial real estate's a function of really three things. What does it cost to acquire or build the building? What is the cost of the money to be able to borrow the money for the project? And then, well, how much rent can you get? So when you have one of those three factors changing fairly dramatically, it makes some deals that looked okay when interest rates were at 3, doesn't look quite as good when interest rates are at 8.5, or wherever the number is. So I think it's had some impact. But I think most of what your folks are hearing about are really in the bigger metro markets.
Yeah.
You're seeing, big issues with office and just general commercial real estate in those bigger markets. Here in Central Florida, we in our portfolio, we really haven't seen a lot of challenges. I think you could see some challenges, or where the pain may come is that as those loans that people have mature and they get repriced from 3.5% or 4% up to 7.5% or 8%, that changes the economics on the deal.
Sure.
It may require some principal reduction or some different things. So, but we really haven't seen much of it yet, especially here.
Regarding interest rates, I got an email this morning saying that interest rates were going back up, and they had been down, maybe to 6.71 or 6.81 up to
On the
7.
residential
yeah,
side.
Yeah. And so I know people start to freak out about that. But I had mentioned on the phone that I tell my clients and my friends and family, I'm like, first of all, you're not being charged 18%.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Second of all, 2% interest rates are wild.
Yeah.
And I think that people, for this 2-year, time frame,
Got
they were
used
like,
to it.
this is
Normal.
the best. And
Right.
it's like, no, that's not how it goes.
It can't function
Right.
in that environment. I mean, the banks can't make any money, can't make any
Right.
margin. I mean, the margin that our industry is facing today is as thin as it's ever been in the 35 years I've been in the business, because rates have been so low. So it's a difficult time for banks. Nobody's crying for the banks. Don't get me wrong. I mean, woe is us. But I mean, it is a difficult environment. So when rates normalize,
Yeah.
meaning they get into the 6 to 7% range, it is a much healthier environment. But I'll be honest with you, we do a lot of business with residential builders, and they're really not seeing a lot of cracks as of yet. I mean, even though rates are higher,
Well, people are still moving in.
people are coming here, and they've got to have somewhere to live, and there's not enough units in the state of Florida to handle the existing population and the forecasted growth. So I do think you're beginning to see some folks who, hey, I'd like to move or upgrade my house, are saying, I'm going to stay here, but I'm going to spend some money on it. So from an economic standpoint, it's still pretty good.
Yeah. No, that's funny. I actually have several friends who want out. They want to, have larger homes or more land. It's just not possible.
No.
Either it's not available, or they don't want to pay
That's right.
the interest rate. But it is interesting because all of them are making improvements to their houses. So money's getting spent either way.
Well, exactly. My wife and I started demolition on a project at our house on Monday.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's what a lot of
Yeah.
people are doing right now, is they're saying, I don't want to lose my 3% interest rate.
Right.
And I can't afford for that to jump to 7.
Right.
Or whatever. And so I'm going to go ahead and make the best of where I'm at and spend some money to make it the way I want it to happen.
Yeah, it's very interesting times. I really try. I used to not read the news at all because it scared me.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously now I have to read it, or I have to at least keep up with it to know, what's going on. But one of the things that I know is really out in the forefront everywhere. I actually saw a speech by Fran Drescher last night.
Yeah.
She is the president of the union
Yes.
for actors.
Yeah.
And she was talking about AI. And I would really like to, talk about that in banking terms. In my Rotary Club, we had a Polk County deputy come in who does only fraud.
Yes.
And obviously, there was the things where, yes, your card gets physically stolen,
Right.
Out of your wallet, or I don't know. I would consider those to be normal things, even though not normal, not cool for
Right.
anybody to
Yes,
steal.
have that right.
But now, people are getting phone calls with their mother's voice,
Yes.
with their daughter's voice,
Right.
with what are you guys, what's going on with that?
Yeah, so fraud's a huge issue. With AI in particular, I mean, I think there are some efficiencies that AI can help us with in the bank. I mean,
Sure.
we have a very personal approach, so you're never going to call our bank and have a computer answer the phone and try to help you.
Okay.
Because that drives me crazy, and I know it would drive our clients crazy. So we're not going to go down that approach, but there are a lot of our processes that are very, very manual, very rote. So you could have an AI take care of that for you. So there could be some efficiencies. Where I get nervous is on the fraud side.
Yeah.
I mean, we're now beginning to see, in the old days, the way to rob the bank was to show up with a gun, and now banks don't get robbed that way. Banks get robbed through fraudulent activity, phishing schemes where, click on this email. Next thing you know, they've got control of your computer. They're sending wire instructions, and we literally deal with that weekly. I mean, I would say it's rare that a week goes by that we don't have a client that calls us and says, hey, my computer's been hacked. Don't pay attention to any emails from me. Now, we have pretty sophisticated processes that if you send us an email and said, hey, I want to wire $1 million, we're not going to wire that $1 million until we call you and make sure that we're confirming that. But to your point now with the new software, I mean, we can call and say, hey, Joe, just want to make sure you want to send this wire. And it literally is Joe's voice saying, oh, yeah, it's all cool.
Right.
It's all good. And you're like, okay, great. So we're having to begin to think through how are we going to deal with that?
Right.
I don't know if it's like having a safe word or something where, when we call you, you have to, say Florida Gator. And if you don't say Florida Gator, then we're not sending your wire or whatever. I don't know exactly how we would do that. I don't want to get my Seminole fans upset, but I mean, I think we are going to have to figure out the ways that we used to be able to do it in our bank was because we knew who we were dealing with. And now we're not going to be able to be as confident that we know who it is that we're dealing with. So we're not there yet, but it's coming.
People get really mad at me because I don't answer my phone ever.
Android.
That's number one. But number two, now I can use the excuse. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to answer my phone because it's some type of technology trying to capture my voice.
Right.
If you leave a voicemail for me, I'll call you back immediately. And by immediately, I mean within 2 to 3 days.
Right.
But I will, I'm like, you're not going to get me. No. Mm-mm.
Well, and that is crazy. I mean,
I know.
And it'll take a long time for people to realize that doing that kind of stuff is something they need to be careful of.
I know. Well, I had a friend who, she got this phone call. They were asking her all sorts of questions, what was what's your mom's name? And I'm like, why would you ever even answer those questions to begin with on the telephone? If somebody wants to know my mom's name, they should, if you know me, then you already know my mother's name.
That's right. Exactly.
I guess, yeah.
Well, but it is amazing how people let their guard down.
I know.
And unfortunately, they believe there's all good in the world and that there aren't bad people out there, but there are definitely bad people out there. And
what about bad computers? Now that's what they are. There's bad computers in the world.
Exactly. I mean, and again, I think the technology, if you use it for good, could be great.
Yeah.
But if you don't, it certainly can be in the other direction. So,
it's very scary.
Well, fraud in general, I mean, it's not just that, but I mean, we deal with fraud on a regular basis. You mentioned debit cards and, people getting your number and you're like, I still have my card. How is somebody using my card?
It was so that was me personally. Yeah. I sometimes work in Orlando and I see this ATM withdraw and I was like, maybe I don't know,
you forgot that you took the money.
Am I sleepwalking, going to the ATM? And I had my debit card. I don't know how they got. First of all, I don't even know how they withdrew from an ATM without my physical card. I never did get to the bottom of that. And it was in downtown Orlando.
Yeah.
And, of course, my bank was asking me, first of all, they were treating me
as the criminal.
Right, which to a point I do understand.
Yeah.
But to another point, I'm like, you can look on an ATM camera and see that it is not me.
Right.
And no, I don't give.
Yeah.
I lived with somebody and even he did not have my card information. He couldn't go to the bank and use my card or anything. So and that was this year. That was like very eye-opening for me.
Well, I think some is that our clients are demanding better and better products. So now you can take your iPhone or Android and just touch and pay. So you don't put a PIN in, you don't do anything. So for some of our clients are like, there's no way I would ever do that. And then other of our clients are like, that's the only way I will do it. The days of me pulling out a card out of my wallet, putting it in the machine, putting in a 4-digit code so that I can buy groceries at Publix isn't happening.
That's right.
They want to use Apple Pay or whatever. And so as you create new technologies, unfortunately, there's guys on the other side who are saying, okay, if they're going to do that, I'm going to do this, and we'll be able to get access to their money. We take extraordinary measures to protect people's money. It's amazing how much we spend on that technology and whatnot. But you know,
well, you have to.
You have to, yeah. But there are going to be times where our clients, unfortunately, answer the wrong phone call, give the wrong information to somebody because they think it's a crisis, and next thing you know, you're in trouble.
That's right. You know, I mean, I think that you're going to have to, banks in general are just going to have to be so creative with the way that they are automating things and doing things and preventing, you know, any type of fraud from happening. But
well, that goes back to your comment about, you know, AI. I mean, our core processor is building AI so that they know what your patterns are.
Okay.
And so if you go to the same Publix all the time, and all of a sudden you don't go to that Publix, they're going to look at that transaction a little bit differently. If you almost always get your gas at the same place and all of a sudden you're not getting your gas there, you're in somewhere else, that artificial intelligence can help us understand what your patterns are. And some people think that's creepy. I kind of think it's a little creepy when my phone tells me in the morning that how long it's going to take me to get to work, and I'm still in my garage.
Right.
I'm a little weirded out by that. And then on Saturday morning, it knows I'm going to the golf course. I don't know how that is, but I guess it's because I usually go to the golf course on Saturday morning. But it's like it's giving me directions to grasslands. I'm like, how does it know where I'm going? But I think some of that's going to have to happen to where we can better protect people.
by the way, best popcorn, Grasslands.
Oh yeah.
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 I like load up. I'll take 3 bags home. I don't care anymore. I really do. My friends are, members there, and I'm always like, just get me some popcorn.
Yeah.
That's all I care about.
I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you.
So I do want to pivot a little bit back to maybe commercial real estate and just some creative ways that you're helping to finance some of these transactions, or really kind of what's going on in that sector.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think that's one of the advantages of community banks in general, but our bank in particular, is that, when you have a deal that you're trying to put together, if you go to a lender and they say, here's the box, if it doesn't fit the box, then the deal's not going to get done. That's not very creative. It's not a lot of fun. So we pride ourselves on having good people who understand the Polk County and Central Florida markets. We know what's going on in Tampa, where we should be lending money, not lending money. So I think that is one of the real advantages to come into our bank, is that you're going to be able to sit down with somebody and say, hey, this deal doesn't have all the characteristics that you usually want to see. It doesn't have 25% down. It doesn't have positive debt coverage at the beginning because we've got to do some, renovations, increase rents, whatever. And that's where we can step in and say, okay, we understand, we know who we're dealing with.
Okay.
Are there other things that we can count on other than the real estate to be able to get us there? And the good news is we do a pretty good job of listening and really trying to help people. Doesn't mean we can always get there.
Right.
But if you're dealing with a big bank, it's pretty vanilla. If you want this kind of deal, this is the way it's going to get structured. There's really no other ways to do it. And I would just encourage your listeners to find a community bank that maybe can sit down with them and think about it a little bit differently.
Yeah. And so how long, is the process from somebody coming to you and saying, I have this project that I'm working on that I would, I need a loan for?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, if it's a construction loan, probably takes a little bit longer because the appraisal process is a little bit different. The our ability to understand the construction costs is not. But if you have somebody that comes in and says, hey, I want to buy this piece of property, I have it under contract, whether it's land or building or whatever, typically the longest lead time is an appraisal. And so the appraisal typically takes 4 to 6 weeks. Normally what we do is we order the appraisal, and then concurrently we're doing the other things that we need to do, whether it's title work or other things. So I would say, if your listeners counted on 8 weeks, they'd be safe. Can we sometimes get it done in 4 weeks? Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it just depends on the project or whatever. But I would just tell you, if it's construction, it's definitely a little bit more complicated. Right now in our industry, it's very hard to find banks that'll do construction financing.
Oh.
And that's been a nuanced change in the last 6 months because, as the Fed has raised rates, they've also been taking liquidity out of the market. So, banks' balance sheets are not as robust with cash. And so when they aren't as robust with cash, the construction piece adds an element of risk.
Yeah.
So if it's, hey, here's a construction loan, or here's a building that's already built that we know the costs are and we know what the tenant is and whatever, we typically will tend towards those. But we still do construction financing for the right project, right borrower. We can still get it done.
And you also offer, or you work with SBA loans.
We do.
And I've had several clients who have gone through that process. I know it can be a long process,
Yes.
and that is not on necessarily the bank, but I do think that's I encourage my clients, to try to go that route at least, if that's an option for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's most projects that we do, we can get done traditionally. But if you have a borrower who doesn't have quite as much equity, or needs a longer amortization, or has characteristics that just really don't fit in the more traditional bucket, that's why we brought the line of business on, is so that we can continue to try to help borrowers, even if they're not quite quote unquote the traditional borrower.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's really great. It sounds like your bank really goes above and beyond, especially for startups or, local businesses. And I think that's super important for people to know, because when you think of banking, you think of
Rules?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, they're stealing my money.
Yeah.
No. But, you think of these huge banks, and truly, as you've been saying, you have to fit into these boxes.
Yeah.
And if you don't, oh well.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and they're not going to spend a lot of time trying to fix that for you.
Right.
I mean, last year, I won't remember the number exactly, but I think we made about $230 million worth of loans in our bank.
Okay.
So if you think about that, that's commercial real estate, that's builder lines, that's C&I, what we call C&I, so that's equipment financing, lines of credit. And what is always exciting to me, and the reason I love our business, is that we have people whose companies exist because we were able to provide them capital.
Yeah.
They were able to grow their business because we provided them capital. They were able to buy that first house because we were able to help them with that. And so that's the fun part for us. And when we drive around Lakeland or Polk County and we see our clients doing well, it really makes us very proud.
Well, that's right. That's Lakeland. No, I think that's wonderful. And, it's just good to know that there are other options out there. And as I mentioned to you on the phone, I am totally ignorant when it comes to banking.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've learned a lot today.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
We always are happy to try to educate a little bit. So, but we're part of this community. We will be for a long time to come, and we're excited about being. If you gave me the map of the United States and said, "Hey, Paul, where would you like to try to grow a bank?" I'm not sure there's a better place than Polk County, in between Orlando and Tampa, in the I-4 corridor. I mean, I'm sure there are probably better growth spots in the nation, but I gotta believe we're in the top 5. And if Gary were sitting here, he could actually quantify that for me.
I think he'd agree with you.
Well, I mean, if you're going to grow a company in general, but if you're going to grow a bank, and so you need deposit opportunities, you need new folks moving to the market, you need lending opportunities, it's a pretty good place to do it.
Gary would be the kind of person that throws a conference for the I-4 corridor. That's
Oh my
something that sounds
gosh.
like
He
Gary
would
Moon?
be.
Yeah.
You know, I'm actually speaking at that conference this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't remember when it is. It's
After
Little
this
shameless plug.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
after this podcast, I might not be talking at that anymore, but I had planned to be there as it's coming up in a few months.
It's in September.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it the 11th and 12th, or is it the 12th and 13th, or is it something else? Or
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. We'll have to get the dates.
Yeah, I know
I'll be
it's
in
in
Colorado.
Orlando, I
don't
think.
know.
I think it's in Orlando, isn't it?
Is it? Okay.
I think so.
Somewhere on the I-4 corridor.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Exactly. It's definitely not New York. That part I can tell you for sure.
It's got some significance to the I-4 corridor.
Exactly.
No, I'm so glad that you're going to be speaking at that,
Yeah.
though. That's very exciting.
Unless he rescinds the offer, I think I'll be there.
No, but he does a really fantastic job, putting, our staff does as well, putting all of this together, and it's very, very, very informative.
Yep.
And I really enjoy going to it and learning everything that I need to know and what I didn't need to know.
Yes.
So yeah, that's I got to get those dates, but it's in September of 2023 at some point.
It's in early September, I know
Yes,
for sure.
yes.
So.
Well, Chad, do you have anything to add?
No, I thought that was great.
Yeah, Paul, anything else you want to add?
No, just we appreciate the opportunity. Again, we have a lot of mutual clients. We do a lot of business with your firm. Great respect for Dean and Gary and the whole leadership team. And it's this company has been here for a long time and done really good work. We're probably a little newer than this company, but we try to pride ourselves on being good community partners, and we do that in a lot of different ways. And so it's exciting to be here this morning. I appreciate the opportunity and always want to tell the story about Bank of Central Florida. So this has been fun.
No, thank you so much for coming in. I'm so glad that we were able to schedule you and get you guys in here. And then also a little shout out to
Danielle.
Danielle.
Yeah, our marketing director. She does amazing work for us, so we're very appreciative of all she does as
Yes. Well, thank you so much.
All right, I
and
appreciate
looking
it.
forward to hearing you at the I-4 Corridor Conference in September.
well. All right, I
Thank you,
appreciate
Paul.
it. Thank you. All right, thanks.